Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Lucha Underground review. Gotta say again, very wonderful episode of Lucha Underground as we keep heading towards Ultima Lucha. Some interesting storyline progression tonight, some phenomenal in-ring action, and an ending that I think made everybody go, whoa. So, nothing really more to say than that. Ashton, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, this was a really fun episode. I won't say that this is one of their best episodes, but as far as the storytelling goes, you could just it's one of those things where every episode that goes by, I feel like I'm going to enjoy less and less just because I'm so hyped for Ultima Lucha, and every episode that goes by that isn't Ultima Lucha, I'm going to be more and more disappointed by.
I know, right? They've done such a great job, hyping up this show. It's really become hard every week, when I do these intros, to come up with different, adjectives and descriptors for how great this show was. I'm really just getting ready to do every week, well, this is another par for the course episode of Lucha Underground, because they've set such a standard for their television that I can only imagine what Ultima Lucha is going to be like.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. Like, the hype is so insane. And the crazy thing is, like, I feel so exhausted because we have been personally, like, we've known about Ultima Lucha for probably a good 3 or 4 months now. Right. They've only been hyping it for 1. So even though we've had ourselves kind of hyped up for that long, most people, like, if you aren't, like, on the internet and reading information about this stuff, you have only known about Ultima Lucha for less than a month. So you're probably, like, really fresh about it and you're all excited for it. We're friggin' exhausted from waiting.
It's like, I wanted to get here already.
Yeah.
This card, man, is looking so legit. We got another confirmed matchup tonight, too, on this card. So it is slowly coming together. But with that said, let's get right into our first segment, Heat of the Night. While things did seem like they were going to heat up on Lucha Underground, on my end, everything's great. No heats of the night tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't have any heats of the night either.
All right, then let's not do any more stalling. Let's get right into our Lucha Underground review. And after we get a recap of the stories that are going to kind of dominate Lucha Underground tonight, we go to our first, a cinematic opening with Pentagon Jr., and he's sitting in what seems like, I don't know if you'd want to call it a temple or like a training area.
It looks like a dojo to me.
Dojo, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Ashton. And he's talking to some shadowy figure about how he wants to fight him, how he wants to make a sacrifice of him, and we don't really know.
It's worth noting that the shadowy figure does speak perfect English.
Yes. It's almost kind of like a demonic voice going on my end from when I was listening. It was
right,
weird. Yeah. Saying, well, then just, make him fight, force it out of him. And then Pentagon Jr. says this name, though. What was the name that he said in subtitles?
He says that his next sacrifice will be Ian Hodgkinson.
Yeah.
That's Vampiro's real name, by the way.
Oh, okay. See, I figured as much, but I thought that was weird that they would, go that route. But yeah, I thought it set a nice tone. Pentagon Jr., I think, is one of the best characters that Lucha Underground has. The whole zero fear thing, it's so great, really clever marketing and things like that. I just love everything about the character. And to think that and see, that's another thing. I think if you look at Pentagon Jr., you really get an appreciation for what Lucha Underground is about. Because when this season started, he seemed like he was just going to be just another character, like this guy with this cool look.
But there's really no such thing in Lucha Underground.
But there's no
just
such
another
thing as
character.
Exactly, and I think Pentagon Jr. is the perfect proof of that, because if you remember, Ashton, at the beginning of the season, I don't want to say that he was aimless, but he didn't have the prominence, nowhere near the prominence that he does.
I mean, at the beginning of the season, he was really just, he stood out, though. Here's my thing. Yes, at the beginning of the season, he didn't really have anything storyline-wise or character-wise that super stood out, but I would argue that they actually went relatively quickly into kind of fleshing him out, because you could see that his in-ring style was different than any other luchador in the temple, because he had like all these power moves, like he had the sling blade, and he had this amazing package pile driver, and he had a whole bunch of different power moves that he did that nobody else in the temple did. And then they did the whole vignettes where they showed that he was basically a Japanese samurai combined with a Mexican luchador all in one.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like his build has been absolutely phenomenal, and I felt like this segment really set a tone for what was to come throughout the remainder of the show. In fact, they devoted 3 whole segments to this angle, which I really appreciated, because, you know, it's like I said a few weeks back, I am a bit wary, and for the record, I still kind of am, about how directly involved Vampiro is, because I feel like he's so wonderful where he is now. I don't want them to meddle with that too much, but at least they're giving it the time and attention I think necessary to really make us care, given the participants involved.
Right.
So I really valued that about tonight's episode. But yeah, is there anything you want to say about this cinematic opening?
As far as the cinematic opening goes, I don't really have anything to say, but I will add a little bit more to my commentary on the whole Pentagon Jr. Vampiro Pentagon's Master thing as we talk about it more, because like you said, there were 3 segments about it tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that said, let's move on. I believe, wasn't our opener the Mack versus Cage?
Well, before we get to that, the commentary, this is what one thing on a list of many that I love about Lucha Underground and stuff that they do not necessarily different than every other wrestling company, just better. And that is that their commentary team, every now and then, they'll start a show, and then before any matches start, and actually I shouldn't even say every now and then, because it seems like an every show thing now almost, their commentary team kind of gets us updated, not only on, over the course of the last couple of weeks case, what's going to be happening in Ultima Lucha, but also what's going to be happening tonight and what the backstory is that led to the happenings that are going to be happening tonight. And in this case, we get Matt Stryker telling us that we've got a sit-down interview with Pentagon Jr. that Vampiro held, one of his many, but it's different because it's with somebody that has legitimate resentment towards him now. Plus, we're getting an 8-man tag for our main event, that being Team Johnny Mundo versus Team Alberto El Patron.
Yes, absolutely. So they call it an Atomicos tag match. And yeah, it's Team Mundo, Team Patron, so I was very excited for that. So yeah, I agree with you. Commentary on Lucha Underground, is really a throwback to me growing up with commentary on Monday Night Raw. I love how they keep the focus on the wrestling. They never really make it about themselves. If they do, they always find a way to tie it back into what's going on in the ring. They're just top notch, and I really love how they lay out the show for you so you know what to expect for the night. So yeah, definitely, Lucha Underground's commentary continues to be solid. But
then, yes, like you said, we do go right into the Mack versus Cage.
And, I'm a fan of both guys. I think both guys are awesome. The Mack, with his size and everything, his athleticism is ridiculous.
Well, and that's the thing, too. Like, Cage, this is a match of equal opposites. Because you have Cage, and he's this big, bulky, steroided-up looking guy who looks like a frickin' WWE prospect if you've ever seen one, and can do all these amazing high-flying moves like the moonsaults and the shooting stars and the sentons and the lion salts and all this crazy stuff. And then you have the Mack, who is also very big, but he is big not in the muscled up way. It's in that he's kind of jiggly. He doesn't look like a typical WWE prospect. From what I remember, he was signed to WWE for like a month and then they released him. It's the big joke about that was, why does Uha Nation not have muscles? And then they went and actually signed Uha. So the Mack in Cage, I see them as equal opposites because they're both big, strong guys that can do freakish high-flying stuff, but with completely opposite builds.
Absolutely. I mean, their athleticism was really on display, and it's ironic that I think of these two spots because neither one of them connected. At one point, Cage tried going for like his leap-up moonsault, which didn't connect. But then there was another point in the match where the Mack went for a picture-perfect frog splash, but that didn't connect either. And the form and everything was I was like, wow, that was probably one of the best-looking frog splashes I've seen in some time. And it almost breaks your heart that it didn't connect because you're like, wow, what a waste. But, yeah, those two, I felt like they had really good chemistry, some intense moments. I believe it was the Mack that did a belly-to-belly in the corner to Cage at one point. That was a pretty cool maneuver. Cage did this really nice delayed vertical suplex, showing off his strength. So it was a great back and forth. But at the end of the matchup, Mack pretty much catches Cage in a pinning combination, and he gets the win. And he makes it look so easy with his size.
Well, he makes it look easy for himself, but they did a great job of protecting Cage here because he made it look literally impossible to kick out of this pin.
Exactly.
He had all 260, however many pounds the Mack is, on basically on Cage's center of gravity while Cage's shoulders are on the ground.
Right. And then Cage, I mean, you could tell, like, he really sold the loss. He just, got caught because he puts the straps down. He's just like, he really wants to rip someone's head off.
Yeah,
and
he was
Mack
mad.
Mack's just kind of grinning like, yeah, I pulled it off.
Yep.
And it just goes back. So, yeah, fun opening contest, and definitely two guys that if they meet again at Ultimate Lucha, I'm certainly not going to complain if that's in the cards. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, whether they meet again in a singles match or a tag team match or a trios match, or if they get involved with the Aztec medallions or anything that involves them being in the ring at the same time, every time it's happened so far in Lucha Underground, it's produced gold. So I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
Up next, we had a backstage segment, this time specifically in the locker room. Son of Havoc is doing something at his locker, and then you see a feminine hand go to tap him on the back or the back of the neck. And then he turns around, no one's there. He closes his locker, and behind where the locker door was, there's Catrina. She tells him that her disciples are coming for the trios titles, but tonight, 1,000,000 deaths are coming for him specifically. Obviously leading us to believe that Muertes is coming to fight Son of Havoc. But then Ivelisse shows up and pulls her little back off, bitch, and looks like she's going to grab Catrina, but then again, Catrina pulls her little disappearing act, and we end up with Ivelisse kind of tackling Son of Havoc, landing on top of him, and then, because this is literally team sitcom at this point, Angelico walks in and says, "Tell me you two aren't getting back together again," to which they reply, "Shut up."
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I love the interactions, because this wouldn't be the first one that we got between Ivelisse and Catrina. I feel like they play very well off of each other. Catrina, like this very malevolent.
I mean, I'm not saying that Catrina's when she was in WWE that she was ever great in the ring, but she was never bad in the ring or horrible in the ring or anything like that. So I wouldn't mind if they decide to give Catrina an opportunity to mix it up. I think Ivelisse should definitely be her first opponent.
And I think it's a match that could work because, she's not your paint by the numbers kind of heel.
And on top of that, I mean, even if, and again, I want to emphasize that she's not, but even if Catrina was awful in the ring, I think Ivelisse is good enough to carry her to a watchable match.
Definitely. I think, that's definitely something that could be entertained down the road. And I still enjoy Strange Bedfellows. I still think they're a great team.
You know what, dude? Do we just want to start calling them Team Sitcom so that we don't have to worry about trying to pronounce all three of their names or call them Strange Bedfellows, implying they're in bed with each other?
Yeah, Team Sitcom sounds good to me.
Because that's basically what they are. Like, it's kind of expounded by the fact that I literally just want to see a sitcom revolving around the three.
I know, right? Oh, man. I mean, I enjoyed this segment. Very straightforward. Not really much more to say than that. And again, I do think, we got a little tease of Ivelisse and Catrina's interaction with each other, which could be a match down the road if Lucha Underground wants to go down that route, and neither one of us would have a problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Up next, we go back to commentary. Again, I love the way Lucha Underground uses commentary. They kind of reinforce the fact that we're getting Mundo versus El Patron at Ultima Lucha, and then they because we kind of knew it was happening because of the results of last week's matches, but we hadn't seen the graphic yet to really solidify, it's set in stone, it's happening. Prince Puma versus Mil Muertes for the title.
Yes.
So
what a main event.
Yeah. But then after those two matches are, I don't want to say announced as much as just kind of re-emphasized, we get our Vampiro sit-down interview with Pentagon Jr. The first thing that happens, Vampiro just straight up apologizes, both to Pentagon and to the fans. Really just kind of wants to tell everyone that he shouldn't be trying to relive his glory days, that that's all over and that he's a new man now. He asks, just straight up, no beating around the bush, get to the point, who is your master, Pentagon? And Pentagon just sits there like a freaking stubborn little 6-year-old that is at the dentist and has to go in now. He just sits there with his mouth shut, not trying to say anything. And then Vampiro's like, all right, well, I kind of had a feeling you wouldn't answer that, so I'm going to try and take this interview in an all new direction. But even though he wants to kind of try and figure out what's going through the mind of Pentagon Jr. and why he's so violent and this kind of stuff, Pentagon just straight up calls him a coward.
Yeah, really antagonistic towards Vampiro here. Says, you and I do believe we're a lot alike, but look at what you've become. You're nothing. You're just a pathetic, spineless coward, and just really, really coming up on Vampiro here, very aggressively, verbally attacking him, trying to entice him into a match at Ultima Lucha. And Vampiro tries to make it known, like, hey, man, you know, that part of my life is over. I'm done incurring that violence. I admit, I bled, I sweat, I cried. 32 world championships. All over the world. I lost my family. The only thing I have left is my daughter. Back off, man. I don't need this.
And he did even kind of get a little more aggressive, and he said, "You don't call me a coward. I'll get up right now and whip your ass." That kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So again, we see that duality of Vampiro, the guy that I think misses the violence,
yeah,
and the man that realizes I'm.
Well,
I'm
you know
not...
what though? I don't know if I would say that it's the Vampiro that misses the violence as much as it's the Vampiro that doesn't see the sort of stability that the commentary job offers as being more valuable than his own pride. And he's, the pride took over there, and he was like, "No, man, I will whip your ass." And then he was like, "Wait a minute, no, I have a job. I am not a wrestler anymore. I need to calm down. Don't call me a coward." And then he just kind of tried to reason with him, and that was when he pulled out I don't have family. I've been doing this for 33 years, held 32 world titles, all that stuff. Kind of like pulling out the credentials.
And see, it's funny because this kind of has like the underpinnings of the whole Alex Riley Kevin Owens debacle, but it's so much better because Vampiro is actually legitimate. You're talking about a guy that was in Mexico very respected performer, and he has been all over the world in this and that. And Pentagon Jr. again is such, not to say that Kevin Owens isn't. Everybody knows I love Kevin Owens to death, but Pentagon Jr. is such a compelling character, and they do have that similarity of Vampiro's time in the darkness, Pentagon currently being in the darkness. And Vampiro even said, like, it's not my time anymore, it's your time. To which Pentagon just exploded, like, I knew that was going to be the cowardly response from you, and I am going to get you to fight at Ultima Lucha, pretty much alluding to the fact I am going to force your hand whether you like it or not. And that pretty much ends the very tense interview between these two.
Yeah, this Vampiro's response really felt like kind of like a psychological look at id versus superego.
Right.
Where his immediate response is that guttural, instinctual, like, "Look, man, you don't insult me, you don't call me a coward, I'm going to whip your ass." And then the superego kicks in, and he's like, "Oh crap, I need to back off." And then he tries reasoning with Pentagon, and it was almost like the 5 stages of grief, where it was like, no man, this isn't happening, you're not going to do this. And then he was like, "Well, I guess I understand, and you need to, and the reasoning and all that stuff." And I love how well written the Vampiro character is right now, because he really is struggling with this, because for seemingly no good reason, I won't say for no reason, because obviously there's the whole sexy star situation, and Vampiro came out and prevented Pentagon from breaking her arm, but for no good reason, Pentagon has sort of chosen Vampiro as his I guess, prize sacrifice to his master.
And see, what's really interesting here is that the external conflict between Vampiro and Pentagon Jr., that's only part of the story. What intrigues me is if these two really are on a collision course for Ultima Lucha, what's going to happen to Vampiro in the aftermath after he's tasted the violence again? See, that's what I think is really intriguing.
Yeah.
Pentagon is only a trigger, in my mind, for a much bigger issue going on with Vampiro.
Are you feeling triggered, John?
Yeah, see, exactly. And it's just going to be very interesting how they handle this matchup. I still have my reservations, only because, Vampiro is openly acknowledged in this feud. Like, my time is over, I'm past my prime, all that stuff. But, if they do it, and I kind of get a feeling they will, given how this show ended, which we'll get to later. If they do it like a big fight, maybe like a Boyle Heights street fight or some other kind of stipulation where Vampiro could wrestle in like street clothes and Pentagon can do whatever, then I think maybe this match could be pulled off. Because, given what we got tonight, there could be potential there if that's the avenue they go. And I really don't see why they wouldn't go that route. So, solid interview segment. And again, I just love all the attention they're giving this feud, because I think they realize, because it's Vampiro, they do have some compensation to do to really get us to, buy into it and have that emotional hook. So well done.
Right. And I completely agree with you that it needs to have sort of a no rules, go where you want sort of stipulation, because, and again, I know a lot of people originally compared Lucha Underground to it, but I think that Vampiro is probably the only thing that they have in common. It kind of goes back to when Vampiro was wrestling for the Wrestling Society X, the wrestling show that was on MTV. I don't know if you remember this at all, back in like 2007.
Vaguely.
Yeah, Vampiro. Well, and it's funny because Vampiro, and now we know him as Mil Muertes. Back then, I forget. I think it was Ricky Banderas or El Macias or Judas Macias or something like that back then. But I think they actually main evented the last ever episode of Wrestling Society X for the championship, and it was this crazy, ridiculous, hardcore match where I don't remember which one of them it was, but one of them got thrown through an exploding coffin with barbed wire in it, and that's the kind of match I imagine Vampiro in.
Definitely, and I think if it's that kind of match, I don't want to be hyperbolic and be like, oh, it'll be a show stealer, but I definitely
I was gonna say, I don't think it's gonna be a show stealer. I just think that that's the only way, really, that they can tell this story effectively.
And that's exactly what I was gonna say. I think for narrative purposes and for purposes that accentuate Vampiro's positives while concealing his negatives, that's the best route to go. So I do hope they take advantage of it.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, I'm glad that we had that little discussion. Next, though, as mentioned earlier, Mil Muertes is coming for Son of Havoc, and specifically, they actually have a one-on-one match tonight. Obviously, everyone that could possibly be at ringside is at ringside. Catrina, the Three Disciples of Death, Ivelisse, Angelico, all 6 of those entities are at ringside. Mil Muertes versus Son of Havoc was actually a way better match than I expected it to be. I thought this was going to be just another straight-up squash, but it was actually fairly competitive for the most part.
You know what I loved about this match, Ashton? To me, this match was pro wrestling done right.
Yeah.
Because you have Mil Muertes, who's this number 1 contender and this monster-type character, so obviously he needs to be protected going into Ultima Lucha.
Right.
I felt like they did that in spades. But here's the other thing, and normally, and this is going to be the biggest compliment I'm sure I give Lucha Underground in this particular review, I would expect any other wrestling promotion to botch this, because they would have written themselves into a corner. Well, we have to protect Mil Muertes because A, he's the number 1 contender for our world title, and B, he's a monster character on top of that. But Son of Havoc is a fan favorite. He's also a champion, and he's definitely on the rise. Like you and I have talked about Son of Havoc. I'd say by season 2, maybe 3, he'd be in the world title picture.
Yeah.
So to me, they achieved both keeping Mil Muertes strong because it took so much to get him off his feet, and there was one sequence of offense that Son of Havoc nailed where it only got him a 1 count. But at the same time...
Do you want me to go through what he did?
Yeah, go through what he did before I continue my point.
Okay, I don't remember exactly what he did to get Mil on the outside, but he ended up hitting a suicide dive, and then he rolls Mil back in, and as Mil is recovering, he hits a double stomp to the back of the head, a springboard double stomp to the back of the head, and then he lands and immediately goes into a standing moonsault, and Mil kicked out at frickin' 1.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they achieved the objective of keeping Son of Havoc credible as a trios champion. He took the fight to Mil Muertes. I think personally, from where I was sitting, Son of Havoc had a better performance against Mil Muertes than Drago.
Or Phoenix.
Or Phoenix. I'm glad you said it, because I was even debating, should I even say even Phoenix?
Well, yes. I mean, if you looking exclusively at the match that Phoenix and Mil had after Mil's resurrection, yeah, I would say that since Mil Muertes has been resurrected in this more powerful form, this was his biggest challenge yet.
Definitely. And you know what? Commentary really sold that well, too, because they said this is the closest Mil has gotten to know what it's going to be like to fight Prince Puma in Ultima Lucha.
Yeah.
So by making Son of Havoc that competent in that game, it kind of tells the audience, well, if he struggled with Son of Havoc, maybe there is hope for Prince Puma to survive.
Yeah.
Which I really like, because now it's not going to be, and not that I'm saying it ever would be with Puma, but with the dominance he's had as champion battling back every challenge, you know, you're always kind of fearful, is the crowd going to be like Prince Puma, you know, they're equivalent to a John Cena, always overcoming the odds. But now that you've given Son of Havoc that kind of shine, it's not like, oh, Prince Puma stands atop everybody. No, it's just that Mil Muertes kind of struggles with that type of performer. You know, another spot in this match I really like, too, they teased that Son of Havoc was going to hit the shooting star press, but Muertes moved out of the way, but they made it seem like had he connected, that was going to be the biggest upset all season. So I really
love that they're actually using that term too. They're actually calling it a season. They're not saying all year. They're not trying to make it seem like they you know, like they go year round, or like they're sort of like the WWE where they have like 300 plus shows a year. They specifically said this season.
Yeah.
And
Really
even further than that, you can't know what's going to happen next season. And if you would have said this year, that would have included the first like 5 or 6, maybe 7, 8, 9 episodes of the second season.
Right.
So, okay, welcome to counting with TWitWoW. But, yeah, so I just really like that they actually, like, it also kind of helps to accept that we're going to have a break between seasons, which is really hard to accept because I can't imagine a Wednesday without Lucha now.
It's hard to accept, but you know what? I gotta say, the more time goes by, the more I'm favorable towards it, because when we get to season 2, you and I are gonna be chomping at the bit. Whereas it's gotten with Monday Night Raw, like, I don't want to say that I don't care, because that's being way too caustic and hyperbolic, but it's just like, it's gotta earn my excitement, whereas Lucha Underground, it's already a predisposition, I'll put it that way.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of almost what I was expressing earlier, where Lucha Underground is so consistently amazing, but I'm just so hyped for Ultima Lucha that I feel my excitement for regular shows dwindling a little bit.
Right. Absolutely.
I'm not saying that because, the shows are bad. I'm just saying that because I'm just so looking forward to this pay-per-view and doing live reactions. And then, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but after Ultima Lucha, in between seasons 1 and 2, John and I are going to be doing a Lucha Underground rewatch where we watch like 5 episodes at a time and just grind through the entire first season all over again. And we'll put up maybe like we'll put up like a review after every 10 episodes to kind of breeze over everything, maybe talk about things that we might have missed watching it the first time around, that kind of stuff, just to kind of keep it fresh in everybody's minds. But yeah, I mean, that's my thing is Ultima Lucha is going to be incredible. I'm looking forward to that. And even further than that, I'm looking forward to the rewatch too. And then further than that, I'm looking forward to season 2, and just everything is coming up. So anything happening right now feels a little bit less exciting.
Definitely. I actually wanted to say one more thing, Ashton, before we wrap this match up and we talk about the finish.
Yeah.
Again, talking about the Son of Havoc character. I love how the Son of Havoc character, every time it gets a high offensive maneuver, he goes to the crowd to kind of celebrate. Because I think it really shows, like, as a babyface, he does draw on the crowd support. And I love
you know
that they
what?
make that connection an actual part of his matches. Because you could...
Since you're bringing it up, dude, let's talk about the finish. Because the finish was, we had Catrina basically choking Ivelisse out. And then the Disciples of Death beating down on Angelico 3-on-1. Son of Havoc does a tope suicida over the top rope and just takes out all 3 Disciples of Death. And then, like you said, he goes out to celebrate with the crowd.
Yeah, and he pumps up. Now, unfortunately, when he goes back in the ring, he ducks an initial maneuver by Muertes, but then he gets caught with a clothesline, of which he does like a rotation. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Then Muertes goes in the corner. He spears Havoc, which, by the way, another side note, I love Muertes' spear. Oh, my God, devastation. And then,
but yeah, that was the end of the match. Spear, flatliner, pin, that's it.
Yeah, sacrifice with one more to be made, in the words of Matt Stryker, at Ultima Lucha, and that was the match.
Oh, man. I think, is this episode 30, 35, 36, something like that?
I thought it was 35. I could be wrong.
Because Ultima Lucha is 39. Like, we're that close.
Yeah, I feel like it was 35.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even handle this. Seriously, like, it's this episode, and then 3 more, and then Ultima Lucha.
I know, man. I know. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Oh, my God.
Okay. All right.
Well, let's move on. Let's try and keep our heads on straight. Catrina does the lick of death to Son of Havoc, so I don't know what you want to make of that, but it happened. But then, this was a really interesting segment. I don't even know if I was a big fan of it, but I don't think that I was against it. So it's kind of hard to describe. Texano in the ring gets on the mic, says that he's never really been a nice dude, but the one thing he's always been is Mexicana. Basically just talks about how he's always been loyal to the people of Mexico. He brings up, like, Sexy Star, Mascarita Sagrada, and he says that he absolutely hates Chavo, and he challenges him to a match at Ultima Lucha, at which point the crew comes out for the beatdown, and right when it seems like the beatdown's kind of starting to wind down a little bit, Blue Demon comes out for the save. It's like, oh, well, took you long enough. Or so we thought, because then the crew leaves the ring and just slide a chair into him, like, what are you doing? And then he cracks Texano in the head with a chair and beats him down and tells him, you're not Mexico, I am. And then he's like, at Ultima Lucha, you will fight me, perro, which is Spanish for dog, if you don't know that already. So, yeah, Blue Demon heel turn.
You know, this segment was a bit of a conflict for me because on the one hand, I like this Texano babyface because he owns up what he is. You know, he says, like, I'm not a nice guy, I'm a cheater, you know, my family doesn't trust me, this and that. He even says, like, even though he does bring up Mascarita and Sexy Star, like, he says, I don't like those guys.
Yeah.
I don't. But it's about, you know, that I never turn on Mexico. So I like this idea that Texano isn't necessarily doing this 180 because his alignment has changed. Like, he's still owning who he is. Yeah. I have no problem with the Texano side of the equation. Even though the seeds were planted, to Lucha Underground's credit, so we can't say this was right out of the blue, pun not intended, you know, with Blue Demon Jr.'s heel turn because of the whole interaction he had with Chavo the week prior, I think I wish, and I understand the time constraints for Lucha Underground because they've got a show to build. I do wish we could have seen his doubt and, like, his mental conflict kind of fester a bit more before this term, because this seemed a little too abrupt for me, but I'm willing to forgive it for narrative purposes. But when we look at the matchup of Blue Demon Jr. versus Texano, I mean, I like it. I think it's the jaded legend, you know, in Blue Demon Jr. in the heel role versus the young, you know, blue-collar representative of Mexico in Texano, who, you know, was just doing great stuff in AAA, and now he's getting to climb in the ring with Blue Demon Jr. for Ultima Lucha. So I think when you really look at it through that kind of lens of, like, this jaded legend versus this up-and-comer that represents new pride of Mexico, there's a great story to be told there. I just wish we would have gotten the one half of the equation, you know, the jaded legend, just fester a little bit more. But, again, I understand we have a show to build, too. But that aside, you know, good segment. You had Texano bleed. You made a big deal, like, oh, man, Blue Demon Jr. has turned his back on Mexico, and I loved how he flipped the people off. So it's good stuff, just a minor little nitpick there.
So would you say, like, how would you have gone about having him, quote-unquote, fester a little bit more? Because to me, last week, just how kind of instantaneously he snapped at Chavo tells me there's no festering to do. He's got his mind made up.
I think that's a worthwhile point. And see, that's the thing. I couldn't even really tell you how I'd go about the festering because, again, I know we only have – because this was episode 35 tonight.
It seems like you just kind of feel like the heel turn was too sudden and last week didn't make it obvious that he was a full-blown heel because it was Chavo that he attacked.
Exactly. And given Blue Demon –
like if it would have been a more of a babyface character that he would have attacked last week rather than – Chavo, it would have made more sense that he kind of went full-blown heel this week.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. Because when he attacked Chavo, I mean, don't get me wrong, they definitely communicated to the audience like a conflict was brewing, you know, within Blue Demon Jr. So that was obvious. I just didn't know the resolution of the conflict would be this soon.
Right.
You know, but still, not a bad segment at all. I'm actually looking forward to their matchup at Ultima Lucha. So it should be good.
Yeah. Out of the matches that we know about for Ultima Lucha so far, this is probably the one that I care the least about.
I would agree with that.
And it's not really anything against the writing or the performers. It's just this is, I guess, really it kind of comes down to we've seen, I think, like not even 2 full Blue Demon Jr. matches, unless you count the squash against Mil Muertes to be a full match. But we've seen, like, I guess you could say 2 Blue Demon Jr. matches, and I wasn't really super into either one of them. And I don't think I've ever really gotten, like, really super into a Texano match either, unless it was, like, one of those crazy brawls that he's had with Patron, or even some of the fights that he's had with Daivari. So it just seems like this is going to be just like a really slow-paced match, and I would like there to be some kind of an added element where it gets just a little bit more excitement involved.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how they handle it. Again, it's going to be an interesting contrast given the people involved.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's a good matchup. I have confidence they can.
I think the ideal situation here is to keep it under 10 minutes, if not under 8.
Yeah.
Would you agree with the under 8 as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wouldn't let this match go too long.
And honestly, I think if Texano doesn't win, it's a freaking shame.
Oh, completely agree.
Unless I will say, unless they have bigger plans for Blue Demon, but I don't know. He's a little on the older side. Texano is probably like almost 20 years younger than Blue Demon.
Yeah. No, you definitely want to go with the younger babyface talent, especially. I mean, we don't know what the aftershocks of Ultima Lucha are going to be heading into season 2. But I'm guessing they may want to freshen up the world title picture a bit, depending on, who comes out on top. I think Texano, you give him a win here, and maybe a few weeks into season 2, you put him in the title picture. So that would kind of be my vision.
You know what's really funny?
What's that?
Blue Demon Jr. debuted, as in started wrestling less than a year after Texano was born.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, Texano definitely needs to pick up a win in this match. Even, I guess I could forgive it if you have bigger plans for Blue Demon and there's some shenanigans, maybe the crew gets involved, maybe Chavo gets involved. But even then, I would have a hard time swallowing that pill.
Actually, let me ask you something before we close the book on this segment.
Sure.
Because you're making the caveat, unless they have bigger plans for Blue Demon Jr. Could you even entertain the possibility of Prince Puma Blue Demon Jr. for that world title as a matchup down the road, with Blue Demon Jr. turning heel?
Well, I don't think that Prince Puma is going to hold the title long enough for that to happen.
You don't think so?
No.
See, I'm not sure how to feel yet, but when you
I'm completely sold on Muertes winning it from him.
Yeah, at this point in time, I'm inclined to agree. Of course, I'm assuming you and I are going to do Ultima Lucha preview and predictions. We'll have a bigger
absolutely.
about that then. But yeah, when you've just said unless they have bigger plans, it doesn't get any bigger than the Lucha Underground Championship, and I am wondering if Lucha Underground would actually pull the trigger on a heel Blue Demon Jr. Saying that I am Mexico, and then
I was just thinking because you kind of have a little bit of a weird dynamic where Blue Demon Jr. has kind of this aura about him where he kind of represents Mexico past. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then the one character that when I say maybe they have bigger plans for him, the one character that I go to is El Dragon Azteca, because they have very similar look. Dragon Azteca has a very similar mask with just slightly different colors than Blue Demon Jr. And I mean, it seems like he's similar in age to Blue Demon Jr., so I just have to wonder if they have any kind of plans for a Blue Demon Jr. versus El Dragon Azteca program, or if I'm just overthinking it and fantasy booking to my heart's content.
That's a great point, though, because we haven't heard from El Dragon Azteca in a while.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we saw him was actually before Black Lotus got captured by the crew.
That's right. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I just wanted to entertain that discussion a little bit longer, because that thought...
And that's another thing, too. I love that Lucha Underground lets some stories breathe.
Yes, definitely.
They're so wonderful. Anyway, up next, we found out who was going to be on the teams for the main event tonight. We know that Team Alberto El Patron was himself, Sexy Star, Aero Star, and Drago. Kind of ironic that Aero Star and Drago are on the same team, but Team Mundo is going to be himself, Jack Evans, Superfly, and Hernandez. So Mundo and Hernandez back on a team after being on the same team with Prince Puma in the Trios tournament.
That's very true. That's right. So, we'll see what happens there. Do we go right into that matchup, or were there any more cinematic segments?
I don't know about cinematics, but the commentary told us that we're going to be getting Drago versus Hernandez at Ultima Lucha.
Oh man, dude! If they go with my fireball idea during that match,
I want it so bad. Yes.
I hope so, man. But yeah, I guess now.
The crazy thing is, judging by a segment that happened at the end of the show tonight, if we get that fireball segment from Drago, we might get 2 fire-based spots at Ultima Lucha, one in that segment and then one in the Pentagon Vampiro segment.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh, man.
So I guess we get to talk about the Tomicos tag team matchup?
Absolutely. Team Johnny Mundo versus Team Alberto El Patron. Really, I think one word can describe this, and I'm guessing, having never seen one before and purely out of assumption, probably every other at Tomicos match too.
Yeah, and what one word would you use to describe that?
Chaos.
Yes, definitely. Bodies were strewn everywhere. Everybody seemed to, get their stuff in, so to speak. I love the interactions between Mundo and Patron, which were very minimal, which is exactly why I love them. Mundo playing the heel character to a T. Yep. He only wanted interaction with Patron on his own terms. I gotta be honest, and see, this is another reason why I love Lucha Underground. I got so nervous when Patron chased Mundo, out of the temple.
Oh, yeah, were you expecting an off Cueto's office spot? Because I was.
I don't know if I was expecting that. Really, what I was expecting was they weren't going to come back, and then the tag match just got fundamentally changed.
Oh, yeah, dude. I kind of had that feeling, too, because it looked like Johnny Mundo went inside, almost like an extra, a room up there or something.
Right.
But it looked like he opened the door and ran in, and Alberto followed him. I thought that we were going to get, some kind of a badass cinematic version of a backstage segment where you see Alberto chasing Johnny, and we get almost like that Cage Mack style beatdown between the two of them, but they ended up back in the ring somehow, and they never showed how.
Yeah, they both did, which was a sigh of relief, because I saw, Patron come back, and I'm like, oh man, is Mundo gonna check it out? Which I get as a heel, I think would have been great for heat and everything, but right. I kind of want to see him come back, but then he came back, and I'm like, okay, because by WWE standards, I think neither of those men would have come back, or only one would have. But in Lucha Underground, they're like, no, this match is still going. Great back and forth. Jack Evans did some great stuff in this matchup. Superfly, I think, has been so much better since he demasked and has embraced this heel character. He did that spot again with the back body drop over the ropes. He gets such height out there. It's ridiculous. Hernandez continues to be a beast. Drago, between his look and his offensive maneuvering, is just so fun to watch. Another favorite point of mine in the matchup, because everybody knows I'm the Mundo mark here. Patron was going to vault over the ropes, but Mundo just, grabbed his leg, and they did all that. So again, always picking his spots. Then there was another point. Patron actually got Jack Evans in the cross arm breaker, and Patron was in perfect positioning. Mundo hits End of the World on Patron. And then that actually led into the finish, because Sexy Star was on the top rope. She was trying to do a crossbody to Mundo. Mundo rolled through. He powered through her, and he grabbed the tights, and he got the pin.
Yep.
So Team Mundo wins, baby.
Mundo with the pin, too. So he looked the strongest.
Well,
I bet I know who your high spot's going to be tonight.
You're damn right it is, but shh, no spoilers. But, yeah, really, really fun tag match. I almost... From a mark perspective, I almost kind of wanted the faces to go over, because I really want Mundo to win at Ultima Lucha, and I don't know if this victory means that he may not go over
but that's the thing. We've never had a Lucha Underground pay-per-view before, so we don't know if they go by the whole theory of whoever has the advantage going off the last TV show automatically loses the pay-per-view, like what WWE does. I don't know. Mundo might just sweep, man. You don't know.
But I would just like to state for the record that Johnny Mundo's brilliant leadership is the sole creditor for this victory. All those other people just helped. That's pretty much it. And, I did call out Patron last week on TWitWoW saying that his promo meant nothing, and his team lost. So way to bring the bite to your bark there, bud. Way to go. Way to go. So, yeah, Team Mundo wins.
Yeah. All right. Up next... we had a very interesting segment, and I love the way that they did this too, because it seemed like, the credits were rolling, or the graphics were up, or whatever it was. Stryker was kind of talking us out like it was about to end, the show was over. Next thing you know, Pentagon Jr. shows up behind commentary and kicks Vampiro clean in the head. Grabs a chair, grabs a chair and starts beating him with it, then grabs a freaking can of gasoline and pours it on him, lights a lighter, and says, you can fight it all you want, but if you don't accept my challenge at Ultima Lucha, all these people are going to get to watch you burn alive. Like, I've heard of violence, but this is where it goes to another level.
Absolutely. And you know what? I loved how Pentagon Jr. pretty much forced Vampiro's hand here. I mean, if I was Vampiro, I would have answered yes right on the spot, but Pentagon Jr. again is giving him a week to think about it, which does make me curious, how is Vampiro going to retaliate? Because if he says yes to the challenge, you have to imagine that he's going to want to also gain a little bit of a psychological edge, knowing that he's going to be going to Ultima Lucha to face Pentagon. So I'm wondering how he's going to retaliate to this affront tonight. But yeah, this was so well done. I got such Kane Jim Ross vibes. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that was the idea, honestly.
Oh, man, yeah, just doused him in that gasoline. The way he just stares at the lighter. And I love, too, the production of Lucha Underground, because as soon as he blows the lighter out, that's when the credit comes up and the show's over. I'm like, wow. The timing and everything. They really knew how to create an environment, and I think they executed it perfectly. So, much love to Pentagon there. And Vampiro, for his part right now, carrying it well. And again, I really do believe these guys could pull it off if it is in a street fight environment or just some really crazy hardcore type environment where Vampiro, won't have to be in any kind of wrestling attire. He could almost wrestle in his announcer clothes, Pentagon wrestling in his attire, and they just, they kill each other for however many minutes this match would get. Yeah, I mean, these guys really are doing a great job of making me feel invested in their story, and that's something that I think is a huge testament to their work, because I've had my reservations, but they're telling a great story, and I gotta give them credit for that.
Yeah, they're pulling us in, man. And it's one of those things where you were even really hesitant when this first started. You were talking about how you don't know if you like the idea of Vampiro getting off the desk to get in the ring, and they're making it feel like he needs to. They're making it feel like, they're making us get behind Vampiro. They're making us want to see Vampiro get his revenge.
Well, what I like about it, Ashton, and I think it isn't so one note as other stories of, the legend is making one last rallying cry, is that if this is an issue of pride, I mean, I'd still think they were doing a solid job, right? And I would forgive it. But it's not about pride anymore. I mean, we're really talking about Vampiro's welfare. And
and that's what I was going to say, too, is it's not so much about pride as it is just Vampiro's well-being as a human.
Exactly. Like, he needs to get in the ring. He needs to indulge that side of himself one last time for his own safety.
That's the thing, too, is he's not doing it because he wants to. He's doing it because he doesn't have a choice.
Exactly, and what better motivation than if I don't do it, this guy's going to set me on fire? Because that's another thing I've never been fond of either in other wrestling promotions. Sometimes the motivations, I have to do this, I have to help the dastardly heel, or I have to give them what they want. It is based on such a flimsy excuse to me. But nothing is more legitimate than, if you don't do this for me, I am going to set you on fire in front of your family. Well, okay then. Yeah, I'll put the boots back on. Let's do it. I sit at home with the kids and the wife, and it's like, well, no other choice. I have to get in the ring. Don't want to go up in flames. So I like it. Motivation is very basic, but very strong at the same time. So good stuff.
Comes back to that id, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Those basal instincts.
Definitely. So, anything else you want to say about this, or can we get on to our next segment?
Hop to it, brother.
All right, guys, our next segment, high spots and low shots. You know what? My low shot's going to be Vampiro this week, because
I think I'm going to make that a consensus low shot, because nobody had a worse week than him.
Yeah, you get berated in an interview when you try and keep calm and maintain an air of professionalism. You're doing your job, and then you get assaulted at the end of the show, and it's not just a buy the numbers kind of assault, because I'm sure you can dust that off.
Yeah.
No, you get doused in gasoline, and you have a lighter shoved in your face.
On fire.
Exactly. So yeah, your night was shit, dude. Your night was shit. But since you said consensus low shot, I guess I'll keep the ball rolling. And as Ashton spoiled, even though anybody a mile away could have seen it, my high spot is Johnny Mundo, simply because he once again proved why he's better than all of you. His leadership skills led his team to victory, and he is the.
He didn't need that team. He got the victory all by himself.
I know, right? See, this is why this guy This is why this guy and I work together so well. He freaking gets it. It was really Team Johnny Mundo, starring Johnny Mundo with Johnny Mundo and some extras. I mean, that's really what the team was to me. So yeah, he's my high spot, and he will be again at Ultima Lucha when he humiliates Alberto El Patron like the true perro he is. Suck on that.
Oh, look at you dipping into the Spanish.
I know, right? I'm getting so into it right now. I'm pumped for no reason whatsoever. But anyway, on to you now. Who is your high spot this week?
My high spot is the Mack, because he became the second man in Lucha Underground history to score a pinfall victory over Cage, the first being the Lucha Underground champion, Prince Puma.
Oh my god, that reasoning though? I never even thought about that. That is awesome. And I mean both awesome of the Mack and awesome of you to think of it. I love that high spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, great job. Look at you. So proud of you. But, yeah, nothing else really to say here. So, I mean, Ashton, do you have any concluding notes you want to make? Anything you want to say? Or can I take us home?
All I want to say is Ultima Lucha can't get here fast enough. I'm really glad, though, that we're going to get G1 Climax to hold us over.
Oh, dude, G1 Climax. You guys don't even know the content.
What you guys need to realize is that the G1 Climax starts a day after Battleground.
Insanity. Like, I'm a sucker for tournaments, and I have never seen a tournament the likes of G1 Climax. This is going to be just unreal, guys. We cannot wait to bring it to you. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So for now, this has been Lucha Underground. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. Has Pentagon Jr. gone too far? If you're Vampiro, how would you retaliate? What do you think about the world title matchup? Does Prince Puma have a chance of retaining the Lucha Underground Championship? Be sure to take the conversation over to Pleetoff, an amazing pro wrestling group on Facebook. Quite a few Lucha Underground fans there as well. But I get it. If you're not really one for groups and you want to keep it more minimal, maybe just talk to myself and my cohort and commentary here. Ashton has created a TwitWoW subreddit. You can comment on all of our episodes there, as well as start any thread of your own that you'd like related to pro wrestling, posing questions to Ashton or myself. And we will see you again for our NXT review, where Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy are going to go in a tag team matchup against the Vaudevillains, where the winners become the #1 contenders for the NXT Tag Team Championships. Are Enzo and Cass slated to get another shot, or are the Vaudevillains going to show Enzo and Cass how real men take care of business? Find out here, and until then, tune in and peace out.